It's early on a Saturday morning, and Portobello Road hums with a quiet anticipation. The first rays of sunlight glinting off time-worn cobblestones dotted with puddles from last night's drizzle. The fresh, earthy aroma of turnips and damp Hessian sacks drifts up as stallholders unfurl battered tarpaulins, their barrows laden with fruit stacked high in wooden crates. Somewhere a distant bell rings as the grocer's scale is set to zero once more. Along this patchwork spine of West London, another market day is blooming into life already. The air carries the mingled scents of oranges, polish, and the softest trace of paraffin from the lamplit cellars beneath the houses. In the 1950s, Portobello Road belonged to the hawkers and street traders, the Cockney barrow boys whose cries cut clean through the burdened grey of post-war mornings. Women clutching string shopping bags steered prams through busy knots of neighbours, pressing coins into the weathered palms of vegetable sellers, their hands quick and sure. Old Mrs. Clark, in her hat with a limp poppy from last November, sorted through potatoes and carrots thick with Battersea clay, the coins in her purse heavy with 12-sided threepenny bits and the faded silver of sixpences. Children scrambled around the stalls, vying for the best fruit peelings or the odd treat from a friendly fishmonger, eyeing bright apples from Kent and hothouse, tomatoes the latter still a novelty in ration-weary kitchens. Lorries grumbled past, diesel sighs echoing off soot-darkened terraces, and the chimes of an ice cream van perhaps selling Lyons Made lollies signalled a brief respite from the earnest commerce of daily life. As the years rolled into the 1960s, Portobello's edges softened with colour and sound. Second-hand booksellers took over street corners that had once belonged to potato barrows, their trestle tables set with crooked stacks of paperbacks. The modish and the bohemian filtered in from nearby Notting Hill and Ladbroke Grove, drawn by tales of bargains and treasures in forgotten trunks. For pocket money, boys might buy battered Beano annuals or tattered copies of the Eagle, their pages already yellowed at the edges. Vinyl records appeared in wooden crates, dust motes catching in the sunlight as someone picked out a Beatles single to play later on their dance-set turntable. Aromas shifted too. The scent of roasting chestnuts and pungent cheese wafted over the crowds mingled now with sweeter notes from a Jamaican stall selling coconut bread and bottles of ginger beer, shy newcomers, adding to the market's patchwork of voices and spices. By the time the 1970s arrived, a new energy pulsed through Portobello Road, the antiques trade boomed, and the Saturday throngs swelled with students, collectors, and visitors in flared trousers and Afghan coats, crowding in among locals still searching for Sunday's stewing beef. Shutters rose on once shabby shopfronts, revealing glass cases twinkling with Art Deco brooches, Victorian tin toys, and faded pub mirrors, reflecting a London both old and newly bold. Pubs overflowed with laughter as buyers, both serious and spent in hunting, took a break over bitter or brown ale, while their bargains were wrapped in layers of newspaper. Stallholders, some veterans of the market, others recent arrivals, hawked bakelite radios, ration book relics, and old-school satchels. Scrap merchants and junk dealers gave way to vintage clothing stalls, where fashion-conscious teens rifled through rails of 1940s. Crepe dresses or army surplus coats trading in the high street monotony of C and A and Freeman Hardy Willis for something with a dollop more history. The 1980s brought yet more transformation, as Portobello rode the currents of changing London. Young entrepreneurs opened tiny boutiques behind rainbow-painted facades, offering Sloane Ranger shoes and designer frocks cheek by jowl with jumble sale crockery. The market became a magnet for tourists and day trippers, curious to uncover the quirks and contradictions of London's past and present pressed together on a single street. Socks and socks of visitors arrived on Routemaster buses, queuing for Dutch pancakes or queasy carnival rides, while reggae boomed from the open doors of a record shop. The old produce stalls, once dominant, shrank back to make way for shops selling wind-up gramophones, second-hand cassettes, and Star Wars figurines in battered blister packs. The smell of car exhaust mingled with the incense drifting from New Age craft stalls, creating an unmistakable urban perfume unique to this time and place. Through each decade, Portobello remained a stage for rich characters and daily dramas. Old-timers recalled the early morning jostle for the best cabbages, or the good-natured arguments sparked by a slightly suspect set of weighing scales. A glance into the back rooms of pubs, or the smoky cafes just off the road, would reveal friendships forged over endless cups of strong tea and bacon rolls wrapped in wax paper, while children dashed in and out in games that ignored the changing face of the street. Even as the gentrification of the late 1980s and early 90s crept forward, the first espresso bars and imported deli counters, replacing pie shops and greasy spoons, something of Portobello's original soul clung to the cobbles deep in the cracks. Beneath 1,000 footsteps, on chill afternoons, neighbours still met for a catch-up beside the old fruit stalls, and the market's patchwork accents spoke of London's endless cycle of renewal and remembrance. In many ways, Portobello Road was its own kind of community timekeeper, a place where the daily and the extraordinary entwined, where generations marked their passage not by grand events but by the simple acts of buying, selling, and stopping for a nap. It reflected the city's shifting fortunes and fashions, from barrows trembling with cabbages and spuds, to cabinets glittering with Edwardian trinkets and rails stuffed with paisley and velvet. These changes didn't come overnight. With every new shopfront and each closing stall, locals weighed the benefits broader choices and greater prosperity against a longing for the camaraderie and slow, neighbourly rhythms that once knitted the street together. The market's evolution mirrored London's own. The push and pull of modern life, opportunities won and old certainties lost, the steady tick from battered milk floats, giving way to the skip of joggers and the clatter of high street shoppers. Yet, through it all, the deep resonance of tradition and local pride. In the heart of a misty London morning, the soreness of rising bread mingled with the tang of fresh oranges, drifting gently across the old stones of Spitalfields Market. Pale sunlight tiptoed through the glass roof, dappling cracked wooden crates and fluttering canvas banners, each embroidered with the marks of merchants long gone. It was a place where echoes lingered of market cries, cockney banter, and the hush of dawn's first footfalls. Milly awoke in a little flat above Elder Street, her window framing a tapestry of the market below. Her mother hummed softly in the kitchen, clattering teacups and toasting thick slices of bread. Milly pressed her cheek to the cool window pane, watching stallholders wheel barrows and set up shop, their voices rolling with the old East End music. Spitalfields, her mother would say, is a living book. Each morning spills a new chapter. Every corner whispers a story. Today felt special, the way the sunlight played across puddles left by night's shower. The market lulled, yet trembling with possibility. Slipping into her faded pink duffel coat, Milly bid farewell to her mother and stepped into the river of life below. A plump baker swept flour from his step, while the costermonger arranged apples in neat pyramids, red, green, shining as if freshly polished by the wind. The scent of jellied eels curled in the air, strange but comforting, and the gentle slosh of tea being poured drifted from a nearby stall. Milly's boots thudded softly over the cobbles. She paused by old Tommy's sweet stand, shelves stacked with jars of striped humbugs and lemon drops, their glass glowing gold in the morning light. "Morning, darling," old Tommy said, his smile creasing up like a concertina. He always called her darling, like you'd say to a friend, not a stranger. That was Spitalfields. No one ever felt a stranger for long. As she wandered deeper, she passed beneath the iron ribs of the Victorian hollow marvel of its time. All arches and patterned glass. Here, artists were setting out their canvases, brush strokes fresh and glistening. Beyond them, second-hand coats rubbed shoulders with silk scarves, relics from every era draped together. Milly noticed something new today. A cluster of strange, brightly painted barrows with twinkling fairy lights and chalkboard menus offering things she'd never heard of. Kimchi toasties, vegan brownies, coffee, brewed in tin contraptions that hissed and puffed and filled the air with their own hopeful aroma. A hipster's paradise, her mother called this corner, and Milly always smiled when she heard the word, imagining a sort of secret club held together by laughter and odd socks. She wandered over, curiosity pricking. "Care for a try?" asked a girl with a ribbon in her hair and a jumper as yellow as spring. She held out a tin mug as delicate as a robin's egg, brimming with a drink so fragrant it made Milly think of distant gardens' strong coffee, but with a hint of spice. "Thank you," Milly replied, taking a cautious sip. Warmth blossomed in her chest. Around her, people, grandparents and students, city workers and careful old ladies mingled cheerily, trading stories for chutney and laughter for lavender soap. As the bustle hummed along, Milly's hand brushed against something smooth and wooden behind a jumble of old record players. It was a battered market bell, its clapper missing, but its handle polished shiny by generations of hands. It might have lain overlooked, but it felt important. Somehow a small emblem of days when traders rang for opening and closing, voices carrying the news as much as the wares. An elderly woman with keen blue eyes and a tartan shawl noticed Milly examining the bell. "That, love, belonged to my granddad. He was a flower man here, back when steam trolleys ran their rattling routes. Said the bell kept time better than his old wristwatch." Milly pictured it. Flower stalls spilling colour, voices calling out peonies for a penny. The bell ringing clear beneath the high sun-speckled rafters. She ran her thumb over the brass, feeling a faint warmth, as if it still remembered. "Would you like to hold it for a while?" the lady asked. Milly nodded, a small shiver of pride running through her. And so she wandered with the market bell, her own small secret for the morning. She watched the traders old and new as they traded news and produce, remembering all the lives that had built Spitalfields into this living patchwork. Victorian traders once called out their cockles and jellied eels amid the clack of horse-drawn carts. Now, bicycles zipped past Indie coffee carts, and the air held the buzz of hope and history. At noon, the sunlight shifted, painting the pavement with stained glass rainbows. Milly returned to the woman, who smiled and slipped her a sugared violet for luck. "Remember, love, places hold memories, but it's the folk who share them. That's the magic." Later, sitting on a crate with her legs swinging, Milly watched the afternoon unfurl, children giggling, traders haggling, distant church bells chiming the hour. She bit into an apple, tart and crisp, feeling the weight of the market story cradled all around her, past and present, woven together with the laughter of friends and the promise of familiar faces. As traders began to pack away, the market bell glimmered on its stall, waiting patiently for the next curious hand, the next story to unfold. Milly took her mother's hand for the walk home, warmth rising in her heart like the steam from a teacup. Outside, the golden light slid softly over Spitalfields, settling on rooftops and settling hearts for another night. The market slept, but its echoes of traders and laughter and memory would never fade. Sometimes, if you listen closely to those old cobbled stones, you just might hear their tales murmuring to you beneath the hush of dusk. And tomorrow another story would be waiting, just beyond the scent of bread and the bell's gentle shine. Before the city woke, the fragrance of warm bread waltzed along the cobblestones, seeping from hidden bakeries and curling through the patchwork canopies of Petticoat Lane. In the soft, pearly dawn, the air hummed with possibility. Edith Langley, 11 and slight, tiptoed from the terraced house in Spitalfields, pinching her mother's penny for luck. Her shoes, patched in places, made a quiet rhythm as she joined the slow tide of stalls, each trailing a clatter of barrows and baskets, their breath clouding the morning air. Petticoat Lane came alive with them, stretching out beneath threads of pink-grey cloud. All the way from Brushfield Street to Whitechapel, rag-and-bone men called in voices rough and friendly. Old iron bones for rags. They wore flat caps tipped at hopeful angles. Edith watched as Mrs. Green, broad-shouldered and rosy, unrolled a bolt of navy cotton, smoothing it with red-chapped hands. The stall opposite already crooned with colour shawls and sashes arrayed in waves of saffron and emerald. Soon, the market's chorus rose, a glory of cries and laughter, sharper than any church bell. Lovely, ripe apples, pennies and farthings, mackintosh for a shilling. Silk merchants rolled their vowels, keen, as if each note might summon fortune. From somewhere unseen, the scent of chestnuts roasting drifted beneath the tang of damp stone and far-off coal fires. Edith's heart pulsed in time with the market's own life. Grandfather liked to say, "Petticoat Lane is a patchwork UVE, only to listen and you'll feel it quilt itself around you." She did listen. Horses' hooves clapped, a baby wailed, then giggled, a dog barked, and always the cellars, full of hope and cheer. She passed stalls of buttons and lace, rows of sardine tins glinting under the already smudged sun, and towers of hats with velvet ribbons. On one corner, old Mr. Weil unpacked a crate of silk scarlet, teal, cream meech, shimmering like wet petals. Edith slowed. Her family's life spun around whalebone and worsted cloth, but the whisper of silk was rare and thrilling, like bird wings brushing her cheek. Edith paused, watching as Mr. Weil unfurled a length of ivory silk. It shivered, catching the street's half-light, puddling over his hands. "Like liquid moons," he said, seeing Edith's gaze, "came all the way from Lyon. This bolt did." He ran a finger over its rippling surface and beckoned her closer, not unkindly. "Go on, lass, touch it." She was shy at first, but curiosity nudged her. Her fingertips met the silk. It was cool, softer than any cotton or wool she had ever known. In her mind, she saw her mother's tired hands threading a needle, patching sleeves by candlelight. What a thing, Edith thought, to touch a piece of the world she'd only ever heard sung about in lullabies. A bell from St. Botolph's steeple told the hour. It almost vanished under the laughter and calls, but Edith cupped her ear, smiling at the way the two sounds braided together, sacred, ordinary, all part of the lane. Suddenly, a harsh gust lifted the edge of the silken. Before Mr. Weil could catch it, the fabric billowed free, fluttering onto the cobbles. "Oh!" he cried, startled but not angry. Edith, quick as a fox, chased the escaping cloth as it danced between legs and barrows. Dodging a boy with a crate of currant buns and a ginger cat perched primly atop a crate, she seized the edge at last, pinning it down with both palms. The silk gleamed up at her, ruffled by the wind, not harmed. Passers-by smiled in amusement. Mr. Weil hurried over, relief etched in the lines of his face. "Thank you, little miss. That could have been an expensive kite." Edith grinned and rose, handing the saved bolt back. "It wanted to fly, sir," he chuckled, folding the silk more firmly this time. "Everything in Petticoat Lane escapes, sooner or later. But most things find their way home." He rummaged in his pocket and pressed a caramel sweet into Edith's palm-sticky gold-wrapped, a tiny treasure. With a curtsy, she started back along the market. A man sang out "Best oranges" with a rolling Cockney lilt. Another vendor patted her on the shoulder as she passed, approving her saved silk. She felt a little taller. The sky, once smudged with morning smoke, now revealed slants of gentle blue. The air brightened with the sun, which glinted off puddles, hats, and window-panes. Edith's nose tingled with mingled aromas: roasting chestnuts, orange peels, wet wool, and a faint, soft scent left by the silk upon her fingertips. She spotted her mother at the end of the lane, fussing over a modest basket of lace and ribbons for tonight's mending. "Did you see the silk?" her mother asked, affection in her tired eyes. Edith nodded, holding out the caramel sweet, offering to share it. Together, beneath the patched awning, they broke the sweet in half, each savoring the rich, golden taste as the market sang around them. Shoppers moved like slow rivers between the stalls, voices blending, children weaving in and out with tangled hair and bright faces. Petticoat Lane whirled on, stitched together by stories and laughter, by voices old and new. As the sun climbed, soft and shy, Edith watched the silks glimmer, thinking how even the loveliest things sometimes tumbled loose, only to be found and gathered, warm and safe, returned to kind hands. Petticoat Lane, with all its colour and cries, felt just like that, a place to belong, wherever you started. The market bells faded into the gentle susurrus of late-morning bustle. Edith pressed her palm against her cheek, still recalling the feel of the silk, and breathed in the day's bright promise as her eyelids fluttered closed. Perhaps tomorrow, she thought, the wind might send another adventure twisting softly through the lane, and somewhere, under the same silvery sky, another story waited to shimmer to life. Outside the railway arches, the air was scented with warm bread and distant ginger, drifting through lanes still damp from last night's rain. It was Saturday morning in Brixton, and the market was gently waking up, stalls creaking open under the shy London sun. A low hum of voices fluttered across Electric Avenue, threads of laughter and the clack of crates being brought out, as early buses hissed to a stop along the high street. 9-year-old Elsie wandered close behind her granddad, her little hand tucked in his coat pocket. Old Mr. Farley walked slowly, his back a little bent, his hat perched at a cheerful tilt. Elsie loved these walks, winding through streets that rumored with stories of blackberries after the war, ration books kept silent in biscuit tins, and the time Grandad saw the first double-decker roll along Brixton Road. Today, though, Brixton was changing. Elsie felt it in her chest, the market swollen with astonishing newness. She noticed it in the brightness spilling across the stalls. Not just brown rolls and butter blocks and rows of cabbages as before, but fruit-wearing colours she dreamed about at bedtime. She breathed in a smell quite apart from anything her nan would have made: sun-baked plantains, sharp lime, sweet guava, and a hot tickle of pepper. A rumbling steel drum somewhere beyond the shop fronts played a tune that rose and fell like water over rocks. The notes swirled with the market's early energy. Grandad squeezed Elsie's hand, pointing with a slow smile at a stall where tomatoes blushed alongside mangoes. and oranges leaned up against bulging, green-skinned avocados. "Funny, the world coming to our doorstep, eh, Elsie?" he murmured, his eyes, blue as the faded postbox on the corner, crinkled as he watched a woman in a white apron arranging glistening Scotch bonnet peppers into shaky pyramids. Elsie nodded, feeling something inside her prickle and bloom. She let go of Grandad's hand, tiptoeing towards the stall. The lady behind it wore a scarf, wild as a carnival, gold earrings peeking through ink-black curls. She smiled as Elsie drew near. "Morning, darling," she said softly. "You looking for something special?" Elsie's eyes slid over the shapes and colors, hungry and curious. She reached for a fruit, orange-red and spiky as a hedgehog. The lady picked it up, cradling it in her palm. "That's a soursop, that one. Came all the way from Jamaica on the ship last week. You never tasted it, eh?" The woman's voice was smooth and round, with a lift Elsie placed somewhere just out of reach. Elsie shook her head, heart thumping with the excitement of newness. The woman broke off a tiny piece for her, offering it up on a wooden stick. It tasted cold and sweet on her tongue, sharp and milky at once. Elsie swayed on her toes in surprise, almost laughing. Grandad ambled over, peering with a twinkle behind his glasses. "We never saw such fruits during the rationing days. Bananas, if you were lucky. And apples all year round till your teeth ached. Now, look at us." He swept a hand at the spicy tapestry of the market. The steel drum music found them again, gentler now, mixing with the murmur of traders arranging crates and the smooth knock of coconuts as they were split for water. Elsie watched a small boy in a turquoise shirt help his mum stack yams and orange sweet potatoes, their voices skipping in bright Caribbean syllables. A couple strolled past with bags crackling, their laughter rising as they showed each other a twist of jerk chicken in waxed paper. Grandad bought a handful of ginger and a fist of kalulu, chatting quietly with the stallholder about the best way to cook it, boiled in soup or stirred through rice. Elsie listened, rocking on her heels, content to be small and mostly ignored, while the adults shared their quiet knowledge. Above it all, no one rushed. Even the city's familiar bustle had softened here, slowed by the summer and the scents in the air. Elsie closed her eyes, letting the market's colors swirl beneath her lids. Emerald, coral, sapphire, gold, delicious newness, mixed with the thick, steady calm of her grandad beside her. They walked on together, their shopping bags swinging softly. Elsie caught a glimpse of herself in a shop mirror, her cheeks pink from adventure, her plaits shining in the thin shards of sun that prized open the clouds. As they passed the fish stall, the vendor called out, "Good morning," in a voice rumbling and deep with Caribbean vowels. Grandad replied, "Top of the morning to you," as if that was the most ordinary thing, both of them grinning as if old friends. Elsie caught Grandad's hand again. "Were there always so many colors here?" she asked in a whisper, watching a lady in a lemon blouse thread ribbons of sugarcane onto a board. He bent low until his voice was right in her ear. "Not always. After the war, it was all grey and brown, and your Nan would say, 'Best you imagine a bit of sunshine with your porridge, Elsie.' But now," he trailed off, glancing around them, met the glint of papayas, at a woman pouring hibiscus water into glass bottles, a pair of children skipping rope along a painted curb. "Now," he echoed, "the sunshine's come here." A gentle wind tumbled through the market, flicking menus and fluttering posters for Sunday cricket in the park. Elsie felt the day melt into a slow, golden hush. Her toes tingled as if she had stepped onto the stage of some sweet-smelling pageant. Grandad steered her to a bench under striped shade. They shared a patty, warm and flaky, the pastry crackling just a little in her mouth. Birds darted overhead, snatching crumbs. Elsie pressed her ear to her granddad's chest, feeling his heart beat a strong, steady drum beneath a woolly jumper. Soon, her eyelids weighed heavy, lulled by the pulse of the music. The taste of distant shores on her lips, and the knowledge that Brixton's Market, once war-weary and pale, was now a swirling patchwork of possibility. As the last bus rolled by, Elsie drifted in her granddad's arms, the scents and sounds of the market threading gentle dreams behind her eyes. Tomorrow, she wondered, would dawn rose on Covent Garden with the scent of earth and dew, curling through cobblestone and wicker baskets, still damp from the morning mist. Stalls stretched out like a patchwork quilt, crimson apples, forest green cabbages, soft, tawny loaves, each one waiting under striped awnings for the first footsteps of the day. There, amidst a shifting tapestry of light and shadow, began the tale of Elsie Harper, aged 10, daughter of a greengrocer, and quiet observer of worlds. Elsie loved nothing more than slipping from bed before the city's chorus began. Cheeks cool in the pearl-grey half-light, she'd steal through the narrow passage behind the family shop. The stone cooled beneath her feet, and out onto the square as its heart slowly beat awake. Everywhere, life unfurled. You could feel it on your skin. The cool rush as carts jostled in, prickle of straw as crates were set down, the brush of a playful breeze as she darted between displays. The river fog brought her stories from the Thames, threading ribbons of sound-distant boatmen calling, the muffled clink of coins, the low hum as stalls came to life. Most wondrous of all was the marketplace's music, the chorus of sellers' voices like bells, whistles, whispers, laughter, and the distinctive cry of lovely turnips. From her own father's corner, she watched flowers, white narcissus, pink peonies, shy bluebells, spill colour between the greens, their petals fresh and fragrant, their pollen dusting fingers gold. The air was thick with living scents, crushed thyme, peppery watercress, sweet hay, and the warm, yeasty breath of bakeries. For all its bustle, Covent Garden felt safe, gentler, secret place, if you looked closely enough. Elsie's favourite spot was beside the old bronze water pump, where sunlight danced through dust motes and the smell of lilies lingered thick by the flower girl's stall. There, clutching a paper-wrapped plum, or herself a handful of daisies, when the coin box allowed, she found adventure in the ordinarier world in every market morning. One such morning, curiosity led Elsie down a lane she'd never noticed, ducked behind the stalls, past the lamplit doors of Evans, the cheesemonger, and beyond the fresh rush of the dairyman's cart. Dappled sun slipped through high, sash windows, glimmering on puddles and bouncing off flagstones. A faint, strange melody wound its way on the aeronote, and then a laugh, and then a flourish of something like wind chimes mixing with a tap and a shuffle. It was the sound of someone practicing a tune. She found him in the lee of the old church, an odd man in a red velvet coat, his boots scuffed, his curls wild, spinning a wooden baton with nimble fingers. Nearby, a battered top hat lay at his feet, already catching crushed flower petals and 3 glinting pennies. As Elsie hesitated, he winked, balancing the baton on his nose before sending it whirling above his head. "Morning, miss," he piped, voice soft as falling flower. "Ever seen a magic show before breakfast?" She grinned, folding herself onto the step to watch, cradling her plums. The performer, Mr. Redcoat, she named him, danced through tricks with a magician's hands and a musician's heart. Cards appeared from behind her ears, silk scarves blossomed into spotted handkerchiefs, and he twirled like a music box by a cracked cobblestone stage. As the market behind them grew noisy, the yelps, the calls, the everyday jangle, this hidden corner pulsed to a rhythm of its own. For a blessed hour, Elsie and Mr. Redcoat spun inside this private theatre, their laughter threading through the stone and the light. By the end, her plums were gone. Mr. Redcoat had juggled them high, then handed them back, round and warm and whole. "Remember this, Elsie," he said quietly as she rose to go. "Every square and stall holds a stage. If you look with your best sort of eyes." She didn't see him again, though sometimes she thought she caught his music swelling on the breeze. Days melted forward. Years folded into themselves, as only London years can, slow as honey, quick as a blackbird's flash. The old market changed, as old things do. Vegetables made way for velvet ropes, apples for actors' applause. The sellers replaced with singers and their painted faces. The grand hall shone up, glass vaulting thrown wide, gold-lettered signs pointing now to theatres and ticket offices. No longer potatoes and pears. But memory, Elsie found, kept its own perfume. Whenever she returned to Covent Garden, the spirits of turnips and tulips would rise up to greet her in the soft footfall on cobbles, the new music spilling from the street performers, the green scent clinging to trim gardens and window boxes where flowers still clambered bold as ever, in the cool hush before curtain up past the ticket booths and down the echoing colonnades. She sometimes half expected to see Mr. Redcoat pirouetting with his hat, cards tumbling like petals all around. Elsie, grown now, would settle on a stone bench with a paper cone of berries in her hands, watching the dancers, jugglers, and magicians, their faces bright in the golden light filtering down from the high, curved glass. Here, the air held an old sweetness, like the end of summer, and every echo was half a lullaby. The past lingered gently, the soft thunder of wheels, the laughter of flower sellers, the rustle of 1,000 market mornings cushioning the excitement of each new performance. And so, under the great glowing lamps and among the whirl of visitors, Covent Garden lived two lives at once, one for memory, scented with soil and petal, one for the present, pulsing with song and stage. Elsie understood now what Mr. Redcoat had meant. Every corner remains a theatre for those who look kindly and see with the heart as well as the eye. Sleepy now, and cradled by the city's hush, Elsie would close her eyes and listen. Out beyond the footlights, through glass and time, Covent Garden drifted on alive with old stories grown new. But if you walk the cobbles when the first mist swirls, and the market's heart is just beginning to wake, you might still hear a magician's music, soft as dawn. If you close your eyes and breathe in, you might catch the sweet, warm fragrance of crusty loaves, drifting through soft morning air. The street lamps glow with the softest gold, casting dappled patterns on old cobblestones, and Borough Market wakes. Here, beneath the ribbed iron arches, just by the River Thames, time flows like honey, slow, gleaming, and rich with memory. In a quiet corner, young Peter slips through the gates, a wicker basket over his arm, his heart light as summer linen. Peter lives in the city, but his dreams are woven from stories as old as the stones beneath his feet. Grandad always says, you can taste history if you let yourself. So, today, while the city still yawns, Peter tiptoes into Borough Market, curious to find the secrets folded into loaves and whirled in the stall's laughter. Under the steel and glass canopy, the market breathes alive. Stalls bloom with colour, golden cobs, glossy plums, carrots tangled with earth. But it's the bread that beckons, strongester, kind that brings warmth to your fingertips, even through a paper bag. The smell swells with promise, and Peter follows, his shoes tapping gently on flagstones, worn smooth by centuries of hurried shoes and hopeful feet. At the old bakery stand stands Mrs. Armitage, flower on her cheeks and a twinkle in her eye. She lays out shining nobly loaves she calls checkers, though Peter's never seen their like. "Fancy a story with your bread this morning, love?" she asks, slicing a piece no thicker than a twopence and handing it over. Peter grins. "Yes, please." She leans close, her voice low and tuneful, and the market's bustle dims just for them. "Did you know, lad, 1,000 years ago might as well have been forever. This market was just a terrace of dusty grain sacks. The borough itself sprang up for one reason: food. Benedictine monks in their brown wool robes would come at first light. Bells in the abbey would chime the feast day's beginning. The monks traded in barley and rye and taught the city to knead dough with patience, to wait for the magic of rising and crackling and crust. As Peter chews, the bread is indeed like a secret passed down. He can almost see those monks, their gentle hands dusted with flour, sharing jokes as they nudge new loaves from the fire's mouth. "But," Mrs. Armitage chirps, "the world changed, and so did the market. Round about the time of plagues and kings, the traders poured in like rain. Bakers, yes, but also butchers, fishmongers, and cheese-wheel turners. The air grew thick, not just with bread, but with voices, 100 dialects, all trying to outsing each other." She winks, lifting her apron. "And somewhere, always, a hungry Londoner searching for something good for breakfast." Peter's mind whirls with the image. He thanks Mrs. Armitage and, sticky with crumb, strolls deeper into the market's tangle. Bells ring out somewhere, fairer modern chime, and yet he imagines a ghostly echo from medieval days. He pauses by a man selling honey amber jars glinting in the light. "Care for a taste?" the man asks. "This batch comes from rooftop hives. The bees sip lavender from gardens hidden above the railway." Peter tastes, and the honey is like sunlight caught on the tongue. They chat about bees, about the river, about small, hopeful things. Further along, an older gentleman tends a cheese stall. The air is sharp, rich with distant hills and green pastures. Peter listens as the man describes how, during the Industrial Revolution, workers from every corner of Britain flooded here, bringing cheddar from Somerset, Stilton from Nottingham, Wensleydale from Yorkshire. They'd come here, find their own comforts, a slice of home, wrapped up in hurry and hope, he says. Peter wonders at all the longing tucked into Borough-S corners, the stories layered into the market-S very bricks. With every step, Peter feels the gentle press of history, a hand laid softly on his shoulder. Somewhere, a group of friends clink coffee cups. A chef tosses something fragrant into a pan and it sizzles, rich with garlic and pepper. The market has become a feast, not just for the belly, but the soul. At last, Peter sits beneath a green awning, legs swinging. All around him are echoes, monks' prayers, porters' songs, the laughter of hopeful cooks crafting new flavors. A little girl giggles nearby as her mum feeds her a sun-warmed cherry tomato. The sky glows faintly pink, promising fair weather for tomorrow. Grandad meets him, just as a church clock chimes the half-hour. They sit together, bread breaking easily between their hands, the city humming gently around them. "Did you find anything new?" Grandad asks, smiling so his eyes crinkle. Peter closes his eyes, catching the fading scent of bread, the laughter of workers past, the shimmer of light on old cobbles. "I think so," he says softly. "This place is always new and old at once, I think. Borough Market remembers us, and we remember it." Grandad nods, squeezing Peter's hand. All the worries of the present-day traffic, homework, tomorrow's weather seem far away, pressed flat beneath the weight of centuries of kindness and care. The world, for now, is soft and slow, cradled in the arms of history and hope. The market whispers good night with every creak of its rafters, every sigh of bread cooling on the breeze. And somewhere, deep in the stone, the voices of monks, porters, and food lovers drift and mingle, welcoming tomorrow's stories to the ever-lively feast. As night folds gently over Borough Market, the softest scents linger: lavender, honey, wheaten crust, sweet summer fruits, promising that tomorrow there will be a new story rising with the dawn. If you ever find yourself wandering under those storied arches, listen closely. Perhaps you'll hear a tale, too, waiting in the warm, fresh air. On a grey-blue dawn, when London still lay curled in dreams, a cool mist rolled over the cobbles of Smithfield, soft as an old wool cloak. In the hush before daybreak, the air rang with quiet promise. Here, under the silhouetted spire of St. Bartholomew's, a boy named Sammy hurried, gloves pulled to his knuckles, breath ghosting before him. Smithfield was London's oldest heartbeat, murmuring beneath grand new stories. The scent of the city's waking the cold tang, the sweet wisp of rye loaves, the faintest whiff of bracken from the livestocks settled in the square. But over all rang the true call of morning, the clang and cry of the meat market. Sammy loved that sound. It was the sound of his mother's laughter, rising above the hubbub as she worked a stall. It was the jingle of coins tucked in an apron. It was the city rugged and generous, alive and restless. He hurried past the humpy outline of the Charterhouse, glancing at silent windows, and turned into the bustling square. Already, lamps threw ovals of gold on puddles, glistening like penny pieces. The market stretched before him, a hive of stalls covered by tarpaulin, canvas flapping softly, tables already laden in tidy rows. Smithfield Market was old as legend, the grown-ups said, and truly, if you listened a moment, the cobblestones remembered. Sammy sometimes wondered if the slabs whispered of the horses' hooves, the herds of sheep, the medieval fairs, hundreds of years past. As he helped his mother set out chalkboard since Oxtail, chops, brisket, he caught again the echo of clinking knives. Some said Smithfield was London's bloody heart, tucked by history beneath its brick arches. But Sammy didn't think of the market as grim or frightening. To him, it throbbed with life and stories. Gentle butchers in blue-striped aprons, steaming mugs of tea, banter rolling through the morning like fog. Today, the air felt different. It wasn't just the shiver of cold. A sense of change hung about the place, wafting among the meaty scents and sawdust, like a draught through an open door. "Run along and fetch some tea, love," said his mother. Sammy gladly obeyed, slaloming through the clusters of porters. He saw Sally, the flower seller, arranging roses by her bucket, and old Mr. Collins slicing bacon just so. Every face was a thread in Smithfield's tapestry. Crossing behind the grand iron gates at the edge of the market, Sammy spotted something unusual. A fat white pigeon perched beside a crate of trotters. It fixed him with one bright, steady eye. Feathers puffed against the morning cold, it looked quite at home among the butcher's calls and the metallic ping of scales. Sammy knelt. "Are you lost, then?" he whispered. The bird didn't startle. Instead, it dipped its head, pecking at a crumb. Gently, Sammy reached out, palm open. The pigeon hopped on, light as a meringue. He stroked its back, feeling the thrumming warmth. "Smithfield's yours, too," Sammy said. He grinned. "There's plenty for everyone, even birds." He carried the pigeon a little way, careful not to jostle it, and found a quiet nook beside the market's long, ornate colonnade. From here, he watched the morning unfold. Wagons trundled in, hooves clopping. Men cracked friendly jokes, boots splashing through melting frost. The world flared with color, beet-red beef, parsley green, sunrise glinting off steel. But along with this sturdy dance, voices rose and fell differently today. Some traders shook their heads, muttering, change was coming, they said. Rules and regulations, whispers of markets moving, cold, modern halls far from this ancient patch of city ground. Sammy traced a finger along the pigeon's wing. Would Smithfield fade, he wondered, like so many old London things? Would the clang of cleavers, the laughter, the weaving scents drift away? Or would the market change and yet endure, its heartbeat humming on in new ways? His mum always said, "Change is London's oldest tune, Sammy. The trick is to listen, and still find your own music." He stood, smiling softly, and watched as the pigeon fluttered from his hand to a nearby awning. It cooed, settling in, untroubled by the shifting air. Sammy returned to the stall, carrying his mother a cup of tea spotted with milk. He helped her wrap sticky packages in blue paper, tie knots in twine. Around them, folks bartered and gossiped, sharing warmth against the morning. And even as new discussions rumbled about lorries thundering off to new markets, about Smithfield's grand buildings being turned to galleries or cafes, Sammy understood that something gentle still lingered here. London's soul didn't vanish with change. It flowed, reshaped as if by the River Thames, steady and deep. When the pale sun rose behind the market's arched roof, painting the flagstones with honey light, Sammy looked up. The pigeon soared above, a small piece of white against the bluing sky. He tucked the moment away, a memory crisp as dawn, as bright as butcher's bells. One day, the market might sound different, stallholders may move on, and the city's tides might carry Smithfield into new stories. But for now, in this pearly London morning, the old place was alive, and so was he. That night, back at home, Sammy dreamed of the market's heartbeats steady as ever, echoing through time. Cleavers clanged in distant memory, interwoven with laughter. Footsteps, the flutter of wings. The future was uncertain. But London, in its wisdom, always found a way to remember. If you listen closely, so might you. Perhaps, next time you wander through sleepy city streets, a market's old song will reach your ears, waiting, just before dawn, for someone to hear. A cool, wet shimmer drifted from Regent's Canal, glazing the air above Camden Lock with the tang of iron and moss. In the soft hush after closing time, the market's labyrinth of stalls seemed to listen as the lamplight pooled golden over trays of old badges, velvet jackets, and stacks of battered records. Tonight, the air was drowsy with the distant hum of trains, mingling with the laughter that still lingered in the planks and brickwork, memories of busy days and lively nights. Under a striped awning, halfway down a crooked walkway, sat Lila, legs folded beneath her, a thick cardigan pulled snug around her frame. The stall beside hers was shuttered, but the rusty sign once painted with the words "Up the Irons" swung gently in the breeze, turning back and forth, as if waving at the past. Lila had grown up on stories of Camden from her granddad about giant boots and even bigger mohawks, the scroll of poetry on railway bridges, laughter echoing off the old warehouses. Back in those days, the market drew out rebels and dreamers, all jostling for space amid the steam of chai and the scent of new leather. Tonight, she nursed a cup of Earl Grey and watched the orange sparks that danced under the canal bridge, cast by late cyclists with fairy lights twined round their bikes. Across her patterned blanket, Leela arranged her latest finds, a collection of safety pins and enamel badges she'd rescued from a crumbling box, each carrying the scrape and polish of 100 fingers, her favorite black and white, chipped at one edge read, "Never mind the banality." She pinned it to the collar of her shapeless wool coat, her own little piece of Camden's riotous past. Just as the clock on the tower chimed the half-hour, a gentle clatter rose from the canal steps. An elderly man in a faded military jacket appeared, his hair a wild silver tumble, the glint of studs gleaming upon his boots. He stopped in front of Leela's stall, blinking in the lamp's honeyed glow. His eyes sharp and curious alive, with a wit that seemed to have been born beside the market itself. "Evening," he said, nodding toward her display. "You selling memories, or making new ones?" A smile flickered across Lila's lips. "Bit of both, I'd say. Family tradition." She gestured to a battered photograph in a frame. In sepia tones, it showed 3 grinning punks throwing arms around each other's shoulders, the Lock's old iron bridge arching behind them. The man's face settled into a thoughtful crease as he studied it, his fingers lightly tracing the glass. "That's me, that is," he murmured, pointing to the smallest figure in the middle. "Summer of '78, we'd paint each other's jackets in that very spot, right where the gelato van parks, nowadays. Some days it was all shouting and standing out. Other days it was just sitting by the water, feet dangling, letting the canal listen." Lila's heart warmed to this secret kinship. The market, she'd always thought, hummed with the pulse of stories only half told, carried in the creak of shutters and the press of old boots upon the cobbles. She poured a second cup of tea and handed it over, the steam catching the scent of bergamot and bruised mint. They sat quietly for a few moments, the bustle of memories blurring into the gentle ripple of the canal. The man turned a battered badge over in his palm, the metal soft with age. "You know what's funny?" he said at last, the faintest music tipping his voice. "We all came here to be different, to shout our own song. Before we knew it, this jumble of stalls, this tangle of colours, it turned into a family. A family stitched together by safety pins and second chances. Somewhere across the lock, a faint guitar rang out, its notes falling into the blue hush like petals. Lila listened, letting the music sink into her bones, a stray chord, an improvised lullaby. She looked at the man beside her, the way his weathered hands cradled the badge, and wondered how many secrets the market kept tucked into the seams of its canvas awnings. "Sometimes I wonder if the real rebellion wasn't the shouting or the boots," Lila mused, her voice soft. "Maybe it was being here, holding space for each other, all the odd ones out, finding somewhere to belong." The stall's lamps flickered as a breeze wandered through, carrying with it the peppery temps of incense from a nearby shop and the sugary smoke of roasted nuts. Camden, with its railway roar and carnival spirit, seemed to cradle them in a quiet pocket, letting the echoes of long-ago days drift and settle. The man finished his tea, setting the chipped cup on the blanket. He stood slowly, stretching his arms with a gentle groan. "Looks like you'll keep the spirit warm for a while yet," he said with a nod, tucking the old badge into his coat before pressing another bright and new into Lila's hand. "For you. Carry it along. If anyone asks, tell them Camden remembers." She turned the badge over a circle of sky blue, with a tiny silver lock at its heart. It felt cool and secret in her palm. In the quiet that settled, Lila packed away her treasures, folding each story into its own cloth. The lights along the canal blinked like fireflies, and a soft mist began its slow dance atop the water. As Lila closed her stall for the night, she glimpsed her own reflection in the dark window coat collar, bright with badge, eyes shining with the comfort of shared memories. The last trains rumbled by, their windows aglow with the promise of other destinations and other dreams. Camden Lock, with its tapestry of voices and colours, held close the stories of those who came to Rebelland, stayed to belong, and as Lila walked across the bridge to home, she fingered the blue badge in her pocket. already wondering who it would be passed to next. Under the sleepy arch of Stables Market, another lamp flickered and a new adventure waiting just around the corner. A soft, peppery hush of rain drifted over Berwick Street, carrying with it the clean promise of wet pavement, mingled with an undertone of ripe summer tomatoes and the distant, honeyed note of old vinyl. At this late hour, when the market stalls had begun to close, but the street lamps glowed their golden halos, a certain peace had settled over Soho's most storied lane. Sylvie moved gently among the stalls, her boots tapping quietly on the cobbles as she pulled her scarf a little tighter around her neck. She was small for 16, often mistaken for younger when she wore her woolen hat with the bobble, but she walked with the determined air of someone who had grown up between the brims of market stalls, greeting traders by name and ducking beneath fluttering awnings whenever a new plume of rainfall threatened. Tonight, she was doing her usual round, offering her grandfather's shopping list, in one hand parsnips, bread, a wedge of cheese that crumbled with blue veins, and letting her other hand hover briefly over each bright pile of produce. There was something marvelous about the order of the market, the jumble of color, the chatter that danced between hollered banter and quick jokes, the clink of coins against wooden trays. But more than anything, Sylvie loved the music. You could find it drifting from the doorways of the famous record shops, huddled low beneath painted signs with names like Reckless and Sister Ray. The music swirled out in little cracks and snatches, a riff here, a chorus there, always underpinned by the warm, dusty crackle of spinning vinyl. Now and then, someone on the street would break into song, or a trader would whistle along as they boxed the last clementines. Even the rain seemed to keep time, a gentle percussion that filled the gaps between words and melody. Tonight, as Sylvie passed the record shops, drawn by the familiar scent of musty cardboard and black wax, she paused. From behind the glass, golden with lamplight, she saw an old man in a corduroy jacket and battered cap, leaning over a turntable. His hands were steady as they brushed a record sleeve, carefully lifting out the disc as though it were spun from sugar. She pressed her nose to the window for a moment, watching as the needle dropped. In the hush that followed, there was a tremor than the first bars of a song she knew well. Waterloo Sunset by the Kinks. The chords rose, light as rain, and Sylvie closed her eyes, letting the music wash through her like a memory she almost remembered. With a sudden shiver, she opened the door, the tinkling bell overhead announcing her entrance. The shop was steeped in twilight, rows of albums flickering beneath vintage bulbs. The air smelt of paper and rain and an ever-present undertone of lemon polish. "Evenin', Sylvie," called the old man, Mr. Hartley, who had operated vinyl shops on Berwick since before her mother was born. "Looking for something special tonight, love?" She hesitated. "No, only listening," she answered, her voice soft. Mr. Hartley nodded, his eyes twinkling. He gestured to the listening chair by the front rack's a patched leather thing that creaked in friendly protest when she settled down. Outside, the market stall lights flickered, beams turning puddles into brief pools of silver and gold. Threaded through it all, the song played on, and Sylvie let herself float for a while. It might have stayed that way, peaceful and still, but a stray note caught her ear, a different sound, delicate and almost hidden. She leaned forward, frowning. Beneath the music, there was another melody, lighter than air, lilting and uncertain, as if someone were humming along far away. At first, she thought it might be the wind wandering through chimneys and pipes, the way it sometimes sang on cold nights. But, as she listened, she realized it was coming from the back of the shop, behind a shelf marked Local Legends. There, nestled among sleeves, scrawled with signatures, and old gig posters, curling at the corners. She found a narrow alley lined with forgotten singles. Sylvie followed the music, fingertips brushing the plastic covers, until she reached an alcove illuminated by a single bulb. There sat a boy about her age, hair flopping into his eyes, picking out hesitant chords on a battered acoustic guitar. He didn't seem to notice her until she cleared her throat. "Oh, sorry if I'm bothering you," he said, sheepish. "Mr. Hartley lets me practice here 'cause my brother runs the fruit stall next door. I can't play loud at home." "I don't mind," Sylvie said. "I like it, actually. Are you writing something?" He looked surprised but smiled, trying to. "It's not as easy as playing someone else's tunes." She sat cross-legged on the rug, raindrops glimmering on her coat. "Sometimes you just need someone to harmonize," she offered, almost shyly. The words felt true as if, in Berwick Street's gentle confusion, this made perfect sense. He played a little, then glanced up, biting his lip. "Do you sing, by any chance?" She nodded, a little sparkle of mischief in her eyes. "Only with the market traders, when the day's nearly done." So they sang together, softly at first, her clear, lilting voice blending with the trembling chords, their impromptu duet weaving itself into the fabric of the shop. Outside, the rain slowed. The glow of the stalls became warm and dreamy, and the scents of fruit and bread and petrichor ebbed and flowed, as if the street itself was listening. When the last note faded, Mr. Hartley stuck his head in. "Sounds better than any chart-topper," he said. "Go on, Sylvie, take your pick on the house, for new friends and old songs." She blushed but chose a worn single with a handwritten label, "Market Song, Soho Sessions." The cover felt warm in her hands, as if it held all the street stories pressed into wax. As the record spun its gentle lullaby, Sylvie knew that, for tonight at least, Berwick Street was hers, a place where music, market, and memory mingled, and where the hum of old vinyl could carry you home. She stepped out into the street, the rain now no more than a cool whisper, and listened as the market traders packed away, bursting into song as they rolled up the tarpaulins. A buttery golden sun slipped between ragged clouds, warm and mellow, its rays trickling over the green corrugated roofs of Shepherd's Bush Market. There was the low thrum of London in the air, a hiss of bus brakes on Goldhawk Road, the distant laughter from a football behind iron gates, and the quick chime of the District line. Weaving its way along the raised tracks, the market was waking, stretching, and unfurling like a sleepy cat, ready for a day drenched in stories. Young Amelia clutched her grandfather's hand, her small fingers laced with his weathered ones. She wore a blue duffel coat, and her eyes, bright as city dawn, darted from stall to stall. This was their ritual. Every Saturday morning, they wandered the long, canopied alleyways of Shepherd's Bush Market together, Amelia with questions, and her grandfather with gentle nods and an ever-present smile. This was not an ordinary market. Here, every patch of ground between the railway and the bustling Uxbridge Road offered a different memory, a new scent, a taste from some far-flung shore. Threads of curries and fresh coriander drifted past pyramids of shining green olives. Loaves of Middle Eastern flatbread lay sun-warmed under plastic domes, while rainbow stacks of sorry silk fluttered from hooks, catching glints of light through the gaps in the awning. "S'pose it's all here if you look," her grandfather always chuckled. Bits and bobs from everywhere. Today, Amelia was set on finding something she had never tried before. She told her grandfather so. Her voice trembled with excitement as she watched a fishmonger crack open pale, briny cockles into paper cups. First stop was the Tamil stall, where spices towered like powdery sand dunes. Turmeric as yellow as daffodils. Cumin the shade of rich autumn leaves. The air was hazy with their warmth. The vendor, a lady with deep brown eyes and a linen scarf, greeted them. "Would you care for a taste?" she sang, scooping some potato curry, a gentle, golden kind, onto a triangle of puffy bread for Amelia. Ginger and cumin mingled in the steam, curling around the girl's face. She tasted, her eyes widened. The curry was mild but humming quietly with secrets, the bread soft as clouds. "My grandmother used to cook like this," the vendor whispered, with a faraway smile. "Back home in Jaffna, when I was your age." Amelia beamed, licking spice from her lips. She noticed photographs pinned behind the jars, children playing cricket in the sand, a market by the sea. She was about to ask where Jaffna was, but her grandfather squeezed her hand. "We're all from somewhere," he said quietly, as if reading her mind. "And London remembers all our stories." The next stall was bright as a Mediterranean morning. Gleaming bowls overflowed with olives, the color of green glass marbles, black ones as glossy as ravens' wings. Crumbled feta, sharp and fresh, filled the air with a salty temps. A plump man with a silver beard spotted Amelia's curious gaze. "Try one with lemon and thyme," he encouraged, bowing slightly. A drizzle of sunshine oil clung to the olive as Amelia hesitated, then popped it into her mouth. The taste was bold, bright, changing from sour to softly bitter, then suddenly sweet. For a moment she was standing somewhere hot, by the edge of a blue sea. "Greece," said the vendor, his eyes crinkling. "My mother sent olive trees to London so I wouldn't forget. Do memories taste like olives?" Amelia wondered aloud, earning a gentle laugh from her grandfather. He bought a small carton, and the man tucked a sliver of lemon peel beside the fruit, saying, "To help you remember the sunshine." They wandered further, past towers of waxed cheese, Turkish delight blushing in snowy sugar, and neat rows of potted herbs. Pigeons pecked at stray crumbs on the concrete. Overhead, trains rattled by, their wheels humming an old, familiar Songer Market lullaby. Then, tucked between a Caribbean mango stall and a shop with football scarves, Amelia saw a wooden cart, small and tidy, manned by a woman in a navy coat and knitted cap. On the shelf, china dishes held cockles and whelks, glistening with brine, their shells dusted with sea salt. Children waited with coins, their faces anxious with curiosity. "A bit old-fashioned, these," her grandfather grinned. "Your great-gran would have queued here, same as me." Amelia hesitated. She watched as the lady spooned cockles into a cup, squeezed lemon over them, and dusted them with white pepper. Amelia blinked at the soft grey shells. She wasn't sure. But her grandfather knelt a little creakily, but his eyes steady, and offered her the first bite. The cockles were plump and cool, tasting of the sea and something strangely comforting, a memory of wet pebbles at Brighton, her wellies squelching in the sand. The brine tingled on her tongue, sharp and bright, chased by the warm prick of pepper. "They're nice," she whispered. "Salty and soft, like waves." Her grandfather smiled proudly, and together they finished the cup. Around them, the market shimmered with morning light, and people flowed from stall to stall, voices and faces and hands, all reaching, all wandering, all sharing. The market, Amelia thought, was a river. People from everywhere, memories carried here, mixing and mingling in the gentle current. By midday the sun was high, gilding tarpaulin edges and turning the plastic crates pearly white. The crowd had thickened. Someone strummed a guitar in a corner, and older women haggled over turmeric with easy laughter. A little Nigerian boy tugged at his mother's sleeve, asking for chili plantain crisps. Two teenagers with thick London accents discussed football, picking pastries from a Persian baker. "Let's rest," said her grandfather, steering Amelia to a bench near the flower stall. They sipped sweet, minty tea, watching the kaleidoscope go by. Amelia tucked the carton of olives in her pocket, and pressed the taste of curry and cockles in her mind, pinning it there with all the strange and marvellous things she'd felt that morning. "What will we try next time?" she asked, voice soft as silk. Her grandfather's eyes twinkled. "Whatever we like, love. Shepherds."